This is the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer sitting in tonight for Dan Rather, who's on assignment. Good evening. Well, spreading oil from the country's worst spill now covers more than 500 square miles off the Alaskan tanker port of Valdez. And there are new questions tonight about both the condition of the tanker's captain when the ship ran aground and about the tanker's single-hull construction. Our coverage starts with John Blackstone in Valdez.
The oil has spread deep into the isolation of the Alaskan wilderness, beginning to disturb the sensitive northern balance of life. A sea otter, its fur matted with oil, struggles to get back to water, a hopeless fight for survival. The state of Alaska has started a criminal investigation into the accident and has complained federal officials are holding back information. Federal investigators say the captain and third mate have refused to answer questions on the advice of their lawyers. But there is more evidence that Captain Joseph Hazelwood was drinking the night of the accident.
The Coast Guard officer boarding the vessel, about 2 o'clock in the morning, said that he detected a smell of alcohol.
But the Coast Guard officer said Captain Hazelwood did not appear to be drunk.
Completely functional, in possession of his faculties, performing satisfactorily. No indication of anything wrong with him.
In one arm of Prince William Sound, a small cleanup crew is dwarfed by the vast pool of oil that spreads around it. With the spill moving out of control, workers are trying to protect salmon hatcheries that help make the Sound one of the prime salmon fishing areas in North America. In the fishing town of Cordova last night, townspeople wore black armbands to a meeting with Exxon officials and demanded to know why the company had refused their offers to join the cleanup.
Now I want to know why Exxon and the rest of these people were so adamant about not hiring local people with their boats that were ready to go out and save their own fishery.
We do not accept volunteers, and it's because we have to do it in an orderly, organized way.
Exxon's problems here could be partially explained by a lack of expertise. In 1985 and 86, 9 oil spill experts, including Exxon's senior environmental officer, took early retirement from the company during staff cutbacks. Exxon says it's confident it's doing the best job possible on Prince William Sound. Environmentalists and local fishermen disagree. John Blackstone, CBS News, Valdez, Alaska.
When the tanker Valdez was being built in 1986 at the National Steel shipyards in San Diego, ironworkers were surprised by the design. Gone was the protective double-bottom model they'd built a dozen times before. Instead, the Exxon Valdez was to have a single skin.
We thought that carrying oil should have double bottom, but they said it was legal.
It was the industry which persuaded the Congress not to include a mandatory double hull on all these ships.
The Valdez is one of the 17 extra-large tankers which carry oil to refineries in Long Beach, California from Alaska. But only 4 of the tankers have double bottoms, in part because they cost 5 to 20% more to build and they reduce cargo capacity. Experts say there are cases where the ballast-filled double bottom can prevent a disaster.
It's possible that a double bottom would reduce the amount of oil spilled since the inner tanks would not be penetrated.
But many experts contend the gash in the Valdez is not the result of a faulty design. Even the Coast Guard said the feature wouldn't have helped this time.
It would just rip right through there. It may give you a little bit more of a cushion, but it's still going to rip through and you're going to have the same problem.
But the men who build the big tankers, who built the Valdez, aren't convinced.
For a similar thing to happen at a major oil port anywhere, again, is only a matter of time.
Exxon declined comment tonight on what role the Valdez design may have played in the ever-growing disaster. But a Coast Guard official said that agency is reconsidering a campaign to make double-bottom tankers mandatory. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Long Beach.
Federal grand jury in New York late today indicted junk bond expert Michael Milken on 98 counts of racketeering and securities fraud charges. Technically, Milken still heads the high-yield securities department of Drexel Burnham Lambert. Also indicted were Milken's brother and a former Drexel trader. Today's indictments result in part from the revelations of stock manipulator Ivan Boesky. We have more now from business correspondent Ray Brady.
For years, he was the man nobody knew, working out of this nondescript Drexel office in Southern California. Even today, nearby residents barely know his name.
Michael Milken? Haven't heard of the man.
It's a singer or an actor?
Michael Milken?
But to the men who run American industry, Michael Milken was the king of junk bonds. By selling high-yield, high-risk junk bonds to well-heeled investors, Milken could raise billions of dollars overnight, enabling corporate raiders to take over giant companies.
25,000 Goldman, 4,000 Wax.
Milken and his junk bonds fueled the takeover frenzy.
Name the star of this scene from Big.
You want soda?
If you guess Tom Hanks, you're wrong. If you guess the Pepsi machine, you may have a promising career as a movie executive. For in Hollywood these days, the name of the game is product placement, meaning get those donuts in front of the camera.
It's really become a way to be very cost-effective and efficient to get your product out there and to be aligned with a very positive image.
Product placement goes back to Dirty Harry wearing his gargoyle sunglasses, Deborah Winger kicking up her Tony Lama boots in Urban Cowboy. In The Big Chill, they managed to squeeze in Us Magazine, a diaphragm, and a bottle of Maalox all in 7 seconds. And E.T. displayed a sweet tooth that sent the kids right to the counter for Reese's Pieces candy.
The audience benefits because they are able to see something that's less boring. They're able to see a set that looks real life.
How does it work? Sometimes there's an out-and-out payment to get a product on screen. Sometimes there's money up to several $1 million to help promote the movie. Sometimes there's free use of cars and planes, provided the company name gets shown. And sometimes a big star is induced to actually apply terms of endearment to the product.
Yes, I think I will have some bourbon, preferably wild turkey.
It's great, say critics, for everybody except the audience.
It works out nicely for the movie studios, for the advertiser, for the advertising agency. The only one who gets screwed is the consumer, because the consumer is never told, here's an advertisement.
But hold on, say the pitch people. Product placement is as American as sex and Wheaties, which were ingeniously combined in Bull Durham. The trick placement agents say is to keep it subtle, the Gucci bag in the background in Superman, the bats in The Natural, the typewriters in 9 to 5.
When it works and it works tastefully, it's great. It's just a slice of everyday life. It's not that we're trying to shove things down people's throats.
Cigarette plugs in movies are especially touchy since the films wind up on television where cigarette ads are outlawed. James Bond got caught up in the controversy recently when Philip Morris paid a reported $350,000 to have some cigarette references written into the script of 007's upcoming film.
It's the payment of a fee which makes it a commercial advertising arrangement. And if they want to deny that, then I think they ought to take that up with the Attorney General.
But cigarettes aside, the Hollywood bottom line is at the box office. As long as that stays healthy, the chances of fewer products in movies can be summed up, as Sam Goldwyn liked to say, in 2 words: impossible. David Browning, CBS News, Hollywood.
And that's the news. Dan Rather will be back tomorrow. I'm Bob Schieffer, CBS News in New York. Good night.
I'm Harry Smith. Tomorrow, former Presidents Jimmy Carter and Gerald Ford. Also, Kathleen Sullivan from Los Angeles with the Oscar winners tomorrow on CBS This Morning.
This is CBS.
Life on a hill can be dangerous.
If you're looking for trouble, son, congratulations. You just found it.
It can lead to romance.
I feel wonderful, Phil.
Or revenge.
Testimony at the Iran-Contra trial of Oliver North today. He testified that North withheld key information from a Justice Department investigation of the affair. Meese said that North never told him, for example, about his secret use of Swiss bank accounts. In Indiana, a U.S. House seat once held by Dan Quayle belongs to the Democrats today for the first time in 14 years. Quayle had campaigned hard for Republican Dan Heath, but Heath lost narrowly to Democrat Jill Long in a special election yesterday. Long replaces Republican incumbent Dan Coates, who was appointed to the U.S. Senate seat that Quayle gave up to become vice president. And a little good news for a change from Washington tonight. Spring is here and the Washington cherry blossoms are out in full bloom. With the cherry blossoms come the tourists, and they were out in full force too as temperature climbed into the 80s. Over at the White House, the big attraction was the Rose Garden debut of the 6 presidential puppies. President and Mrs. Bush showed off the English Springer Spaniels, born to first dog Millie not quite 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Bush reveals she's trying to talk the president into keeping one of the pups.